I'm Chris Burns, and welcome to The Network, where we connect into a matrix of newsmakers to get to the heart of an issue. And watch out, they've got to answer in 25 seconds or less, or else. Let's take a look at that issue right now. They toppled rulers in the Arab world. They occupied Wall Street and main streets across America. They demonstrated across Europe as indignados hit hard by the financial crisis, demanding their voices be heard. They're Generation Y. Born in the 1980s and 90s, they want to change the world, like the baby boomers. Having grown up with the internet, they're even more tech-savvy than Generation X. More skeptical of traditional media, they've empowered themselves with social media and user-generated content. But if they're so quick to adapt and to learn new skills, why are so many out of work? 45% of them in Spain. How to tap their energy, innovation, and entrepreneurial spirit? What world would they like to see? And the political role they should play in European countries with aging populations. Now, wired into this edition of The Network is Amelia Andersdotter, who at 24 is the youngest MEP here at the European Parliament in Brussels. She was studying math at the university before she was elected as a member of Sweden's Pirate Party. Also here in Brussels, Miguel Ongil, who's been involved in the Indignados movement. He also works in political advocacy in the area of international development, women's rights, and health. And from Geneva, Geronimo Calderon, president of Euphoria, that's a youth-led social enterprise based in Geneva. A Swiss Bolivian, he's one of the World Economic Forum's global shapers, 20-something entrepreneurs with high leadership potential. Welcome to all of you to the show. Let me have a question to all of you first, starting with Amelia. How do you see Gen Y, Generation Y, different from Generation X and the baby boomers?
Generation Y has grown up in a essentially globalized world, which is different from both Generation X and the baby boomers. All the world is so close to us now with communication, and you see this also with protest movements that developed over the last couple of years, that people are actually much more collaborating with each other over borders than earlier.
Okay, Amelia, very good. Let's go to Miguel. How do you see it?
Yeah, hi Chris. I think we are the generation that is paying the highest price for this crisis, and we don't find any meaningful means of participation and to change things. This is why we are going to the streets and saying that this cannot work this way.
Okay, to Geronimo, how do you see it? The people are in the streets, Gen Y is in the streets. How is that different from Gen X and the baby boomers? Some of them took to the streets too.
Gen Y is asking the why question to the point where it says we no longer need to point at other people and say it's their fault. We start pointing at ourselves and asking ourselves what can be our contribution? How can we make the change we want to see happen ourselves?
Okay, Geronimo. Miguel, as an indignado, how would you like to change the world? Now, it's a big question. There are questions political, cultural, environmental, economic. Maybe pick one and tell us, how would you like to change things?
Well, first we need to have a meaningful voice. Our diagnosis is that through the traditional politics and this theory of alternating majorities is not working. We want to develop a deliberative, liquid, participative democracy where we can actually have a say.
Okay, Miguel, let's shoot that over to Amelia. I think, are politics not working? You're a politician now.
What we really need in institutions is more transparency and more easily overviewable policy making. So we have this, when rules used to be relatively geographically centered and they used to be quite easily overviewable, right now we have all of this like web of global regulations and European regulations and nation-state regulation and local regulation, and this needs to be simplified, I think, for citizens, because even in a participative democracy, if you don't have an overview of the system, how can you help affect it?
Okay, Geronimo, is transparency the key word, or do you see another in trying to change the world as Gen Y sees it?
What I believe goes along with what Miguel said is we don't just need the voice, we actually need to have a position where we have our fair share in decision making. And I think we no longer need to wait to get an invitation. We just need to create that place ourselves.
Okay, creating that place. You have done it online to an extent. The Indignados, Miguel, have used social networking quite a bit to do that. How do you see that power of the internet, of social networking, being leveraged in the future by people like yourself?
Well, starting also with your first question, this generation doesn't receive all the information top-down from the political parties, from the trade unions. We communicate horizontally. We have emails from friends, we see the post on Facebook of other friends, and this creates a different sort of deliberative process that we want to facilitate and to improve, so that we as a society, we can all come together, discuss how the future should look like, and we want to invite you also to participate in our discussions.
Aren't you frustrated, though, about the limits of social networking? You're talking about this horizontal kind of communication, no leadership, spokespeople like yourself, but is that really enough? Are there limits to social networking in trying to translate that into political power?
Well, this is only a tool. What we need to translate this horizontality is not to the network, to the social networking. We need to translate it to politics, so that the politics becomes a real bottom-up business.
Okay, so how do you do that?
On the global level, the great accomplishment was the internationalization, as we saw also with all the Occupy movement. And we are starting to create this awareness, and people are starting to activate. And as we demonstrate in the 15th of October, where 1,000 cities came to the streets, we are creating this network still.
Let me shift over to Amelia now. We're in the middle of this financial crisis. How does Gen Y see itself in it? How much are you victims? How much is it perhaps an opportunity to adapt?
I think I've always seen the economic crisis as an opportunity, actually. This is, as an opportunity for developing Europe further or making new frameworks, much like on Iceland, their economic crisis in 2008 was used to build a new kind of information framework in Iceland, so we can also do in Europe. And I think there's like lots of sentiments along those lines among young people here.
Okay. Geronimo, you work with a lot of Gen Yers with your organization. How do you see Gen Y seeing the workplace?
What I believe what is becoming more and more important and what we're trying to promote is that young people already during their studies get involved in social or environmental projects where they can acquire the kind of experience, where they can take on the kind of responsibility, where they can learn the skills they require to get the kind of job they are looking for.
Okay, but some businesses are wary of Gen Yers. They call them workplace divas. They call them high maintenance, high energy, though high output. How do you respond to that criticism, Miguel?
The reality is that to change the situation in the workplace, first we need to change and to solve the big issues. The regularization on the global level, transnational companies paying taxes where they pay less, and then having losses where they would pay for taxes, and this the localization based on international trade.
Amelia, how do you see the EU perhaps helping to change the conditions for Gen Y to try to give them an outlook, a perspective, a chance to get a job?
What we need is more internationalization of communication between, or more like social cohesion on a European level. So that
what do you mean by that? How do you do that? What do you mean by that?
We need to be able to hold our politicians in Brussels accountable. And we need to be able to hold our, especially national governments in Brussels, accountable for decisions that they make here. The last year has been plagued by inaction in face of the crisis.
Last question, Geronimo, and very quickly to all of you, very quickly, is do you see Gen Ys perhaps maybe a bit too idealistic? Are you going to have to achieve your goals without, how are you going to achieve your goals without selling out your ideals? Geronimo.
I think your initial question was what makes us different from the previous generation. And I think it's because we still have preserved that idealism, because we still haven't sold out.
We will find a different way so that everybody can participate and change things, especially in the EU, where it's very much needed. There's
going to be more compromising here than maybe when I think privately.
Okay, super. Amelia, thank you very much. Thanks to all of you. That's all the time we got for now. I'd like to thank our guests, Amelia Andersdotter, Miguel Ongil, and Geronimo Calderon. I'm Chris Burns, and until next time, thanks for connecting with The Network.